I wanted to make this quick video about how I'm arriving at a list price for the duplex at 4719 and 4725 Pearl Street. I started with the 7 comps that are nearby. 4 of the 7 are concentrated down near Tufts Avenue and Quincy. These are priced between 500 and 7,000, 500,000 and $700,000. 2 of them are active, 3 of them are closed, and 2 of them are pending. And I particularly wanted to look at their price as compared to their gross annual rent. Price as a multiplier of gross annual rent is this column. And you can see for the actives, we have a figure of 12.91, 11.97. For the closed properties, they range from 16.85 up to 19.14. So obviously, the higher this price, the better for the seller, worse for the buyer. So the question is, what is the gross annual rent? Well, the monthly rent for 4719 is $1,200, and the monthly rent for 4725 is $1,240. You multiply each by 12 and add them together, and you get 29,280 as the gross annual rent. However, I think that rent is substantially below market rent. I have this service called Rentometer, which when I ask it what a 1-bedroom, 1-bath ought to rent for in the neighborhood, I'm coming up with a figure here of over 1,500. One question is how to price this property. Do we price it based on actual rent, or do we price it on pro forma rent? In other words, what could be? Well, I would say, obviously, in making our best case, we want to talk about what could be and should be. So I am planning to state in the property description that these rents are roughly 20% lower than market rent. That may or may not be 100% accurate. Rentometer is not foolproof, and it may be looking at comps that are superior in some way in condition, for example, that might explain why the competitors' rents are higher. So I'm making a calculation based on $1,400 in rent per side. Even that's not what Rentometer said it could be, but there are a lot of complicating factors here. What I come up with is a gross annual rent of 33,600. So suppose I plug in 33,600 as the gross annual rent, and suppose we were listing at a price of 600,000. What I come up with is a price to rent multiplier of 17.6. That is 17.86. Now, how does that 17.86 compare to, let's say, the 3 closed comps? Well, what they displayed was 16.85, 17.45, and 19.14. So that would put 17.86 right about in the middle of those 3 comps. So let's look at those 3 closed comps just to get some sense of their condition. Well, nothing to see here. This is the only photo for this particular one. Doesn't look like much of anything. Let's look at the next one. Also closed. Now, this is a pretty impressive property. I did look at it earlier. I think it was built in 2017. That's obviously a superior property than what we're trying to sell. And let's look at one more closed comp. I'm afraid these photos aren't going to be particularly revealing. They're not even professional. But I don't think this property is anything special. There are many variables affecting the price, not just rent income. Here we can see those 3 closed comps are farther north, some close to Yale, Avenue, which is getting close to Denver. I think generally speaking, the farther north you are, the higher the price. And there are other important variables, of course, such as square footage. And here we have the square footage of those three closed comps at 2118, 2566, and 3550. The total square footage that we're offering is much smaller than any of those. Here it's looking like 1258 on the public records. So we have countervailing forces here, and this is not an exact science. Pushing the price up is the gross rent multiplier. Looks very favorable. In other words, we're getting plenty of rent out of this relatively small property. Another factor in its favor is, of course, the square footage of the lot, over 12,000 square foot lot. And I am playing that up in the property description, mentioning the prospect for redevelopment. And again, that is pro forma rent. That is not actual rent. And some buyers may take that less seriously than others. Now, to the negative, of course, again, is much smaller square footage, and I would say a lesser condition, at least compared to one closed comp for which we have good photos. And that's this one, built in 2017. I just want to make one more point about the pending and active comps. This one on Canosa Court, originally priced, well, most recently priced at 505, did go under contract just recently, like a few days ago, and that's after having been on the market for quite a while. It has a gross rent multiplier of 15.88, and these two active comps, both on Lincoln Street, have been listed, well, since March 10th and since February 6th. Been sitting. They have a better location, I would say, but they are definitely nothing special in terms of appearance or condition. Well, this one's pretty decent. Let's look at the other one on Lincoln Street. Looks like nothing whatsoever from the exterior. Let's see what the interior looks like. Oh, recent remodel, dated kitchen. And there, those two active comps, we're looking at gross rent multipliers of 12.91, 11.47, which is quite a bit lower than the closed comps we looked at. And that may mean a couple of things. I think it may be that there is a slowdown in the market, at least compared to a year ago. Some of these, these closings that we've seen, I should say the closed comps, happened in December and January. It may be that there's a little bit of a slowdown and investors aren't willing to pay what they did last year and even a few months ago. And the Canosa Court property, which just did go under contract, most recently listed at 505. I should say listed, but we don't know, of course, at what property they are actually under contract. In light of all these countervailing forces, I'm going to suggest a list price of 550, which would put us at a gross rent multiplier of 16.37. That would be, it would seem a competitive price, but there are headwinds. We all know it's better to underprice and incite a bit of competition than to overprice and scare everybody away. I don't know that we're underpricing here. Again, this is at least as much art as it is science. But if you ask me what a buyer is likely to be willing to pay, and in order for us to get this deal done expediently, that is my best recommendation.